Today, we've got a confession for you that might surprise you a little bit. And the truth is, we could not keep up with content either. And it wasn't because we didn't know what to do. This is what we do. This is what we do preach, by the way. And this is what we do for our clients. But the way that the Instagram gurus of the world would teach content or the advice to post every day or batch on Sundays or show up, block off 2 hours of your day every day to show up on Instagram. Have you ever heard that one? It didn't really fit into my life. And I don't think it fits into yours either.
No, and I think that a lot of the time when we get that pressure of just be more consistent, just post this. And if you ever thought, and I know I sure as heck have, where I am trying to be consistent and what I'm doing is not working, I want to say, welcome to the club. This is a safe space here because that was us. And ultimately, what we did was just kind of stop trying to be more consistent. And what we ended up doing was really just flipping the whole structure on its head. Um, it was no more asking, how do I build something or how do I show up more? We more so asked, hang on, cut this. Okay. So instead, we flipped the whole structure on its head and we really stopped asking, how do we show up more? And really started asking, how do I build something that shows up for me? And I think that that question is the root of what built the foundation for what Jess and I have created. And it changed everything, how we create content, what we decide to make, how we're talking about it, when we make it, and ultimately how much space in our lives we give content to take up. And that's exactly what today is all about.
Yeah. So if you've been around for a while, you know we're woo. But if you're new here, hi, welcome to the Woo Spiritual Entrepreneurs Club. And today we're going to be talking about one of the more wooier topics. We're going to be talking about the alternative to that hustle and grind content creation. And we're going to be talking about energy mapping and how to look at your content, a quarter in advance and plan your creation times around your natural capacity. And we're going to talk about some frameworks. We're going to dip our toes into Ayurveda, which I happen to be an Ayurveda therapist, one of my many weird certifications that I have. And we're going to be talking about human design. We went into a really deep human design rabbit hole in 2020 when Rachel and I first met. I think it's actually how we bonded. We're going to talk about a little bit about those woo systems that help you create a system that makes showing up for your unique energetic blueprint easy.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the real problem, I'm going to just be bold and say this, is starting from zero every single time. I think this is what gets me close to burnout. This is what makes me avoidant. I have that kind of, what is that ADHD kind of neurodivergent feeling that it feels so much bigger. The task feels so much bigger just looking at this content vague bullet point on your to-do list. And so when it comes to that, it feels like you're reinventing the wheel every single week. And so I know a lot of the content calendars or content templates that go out are really talking about here, follow this trend. And what you have to do then when you're following that trend is coming up with a new content piece to fit whatever that trend is. And it really is starting all disconnected and nothing is really cohesive. And that's what I think creates these kind of hours and hours spent on content. And really at the end of it, you have two posts, three posts, whatever it comes out to be. That's the problem that I was experiencing, which is what we had to fix, which was the starting from zero. So the goal was not, oh, I'm going to create 100 different pieces. The goal is, well, how do I systemize this in a way that isn't going to make me sit down and look at a blank page? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think because we're both a little ADHD neurospicy, and I think one thing that I have noticed about, ADHD people, creative visionary entrepreneurs people, is that we need guardrails and frameworks because if I did not have guardrails or frameworks about my content, I could talk about human design one day and I could talk about this one day and I could talk about one other thing, but none of it really connect. And I'm giving myself and my audience whiplash. My content's really not doing anything. So it's creating the framework that we have. And our framework is specifically built around content that converts. We want to connect our content to an offer that we're selling or a lead magnet that we're promoting at that time. And then we want to strategically use our content to move our potential new, our lead or potential client through the awareness stages. And creating that framework changed everything for me, because now I don't look at my calendar and be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to post this day, this day, this day? I'm like, okay, Rachel and I want to sell a reset annual mid-year planning retreat 6 weeks from now. What are the main content topics that I need to hit on to move someone from just discovering us to being able to have them sign up for that?
I'm going to back up way back in the sense of just personality wise. Jess is a what, manifesting generator? What are you? A generator.
Manifesting generator.
And then I'm a manifester. And so just from a human design standpoint, what is the action that yours is to respond, right?
Yeah.
So if Jess showed up on Threads, which is her place, she's thriving, love it there. She can literally respond to these people, have conversations, and that type of content creation is effortless. Me, on the other hand, what is mine to inform?
Yeah, inform.
Yeah. Jess and I have very different ways of how we work from effortless, which is what I'm trying to say is regardless of if you're neurospicy, regardless of if you're a manifestor or a manifesting generator, these areas are the system that kind of program your brain before you even get to the system that programs your content.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's really important to be aware of your energy because, right, we are putting so much pressure on this anchor piece of content. This content has to be good, and it only can be good if it's coming from a place where you feel energetically aligned. So that's why we kind of wanted to go into this energy mapping so that you can notice when are your high capacity weeks. I know ovulation week for me is that week. I feel glowy. I want to show up. If I could, I would protect all the time that week to record as many things. We're going into April. It doesn't even have to be week by week. We're going into April. It is, and I've done this 2 years in a row. I create all my B-roll content in April because I am Aries. That's my birthday. I am feeling I'm on fire. And I noticed going back through all my B-roll, I'm like, oh, this is all from spring and April. So just kind of really recognizing and not fighting against when are your high capacity seasons, when are your low capacity seasons, and then really work to protect those times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even just looking at the way that let's just use the podcast as an example, the way that we created podcast content for the podcast. One, we're talking about planning because that's how Jess and I establish what we're doing for the year. We establish our energy seasons, then we establish our business priorities, and then we can start then talking about the topic of the month or reverse engineering from a 6 weeks from now sales goal kind of thing. So for people who really do skip a lot of those steps of the business planning and the energy mapping, coming to step 4, it's expected for you to feel a little chaotic to be like, wait, what am I supposed to be talking about? Whoa, 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 back up. Q1, what was your focus? How do you live in Q1? Are you busy with client work? Are you doing this? Whatever the case may be, if you don't have those answers, the expectation to get anything done at step 4 is just very, very low. So you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you're not starting at the right step because you're kind of just, I'm so bad with sayings, but what is it? Cutting your knees out below your feet or what?
Yeah.
I don't know. One of those sayings, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people reflect is always our first part of planning. And a lot of that is reflecting on, what energy cycles you were. And we kind of look at the different energies through different lenses. In Ayurveda, there's Vata, which is wind, creative, airtime, Pitta, which is when you're going to be strategic and sharp, Kapha, which is when you're grounded. And for those are actually a daily cycle where 6 to 10 is your Kapha time. That's where your admin, all that work that you don't want to do, focus stuff that you need to do then. 10 to 2 Pitta time. That is where all your sales calls need to go, your client calls, anything where you need to show up and be on because that's your fiery time. And then Vata is that 2 to 6 period. And that's that more creative, energetic time. I'm not saying that personally you're going to align 100% with all of
Right.
these, but I use those three energetics and start noticing throughout your day is, oh, I know after two, my brain cannot focus on one thing, but it's great for me to get creative and dream big, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and this is just my own reflection from my postpartum entry into motherhood world where all of this stuff, all of these different energy, they exist whether you believe in them or not. It's kind of one of those intuitive things. So a lot of the times let me go back and reference what I'm talking about with motherhood, where a lot of the times when I'm looking at these, how do you plan your napping days and how do you do this? You're kind of outsourcing your intuition a little bit to the people who like don't know your vibe, don't know your personality, don't know how you live your life on a day-to-day kind of thing. There's that disconnect from your intuitive kind of flow. And so regardless of if you believe it or not, these times are happening. And so I think when it's easier to name something that is, whether this is my pitta time or this is my vata time, whatever that time may be, it's easy to kind of get one completely disconnected because you're forcing something that isn't aligned, or two, you can embrace it and really start to work into that. And so we brought up the human design earlier, which from a manifestor, the overall synthesis of it is you do these bursts and then you go kind of quiet, and then you do these bursts and then you go quiet. Rest is really, really important for me, and I live that. Like, I used to feel so embarrassed to be not posting on social or not doing this, but now I just can't operate any other way. Like, that's just how I exist. So I just think it's something to add from a higher level. Trust the intuition, trust that bridge, because it's all happening regardless.
Yeah. And I know you just shared a little bit about your human design, and I'll quickly break it down of how I've seen this show up. But for me, I'm a manifesting generator, which that's to respond. That's wired to respond. My best content comes from reaction. So either getting ideas from client calls, client questions that they've asked, or going on threads, I'll be able to respond. But for me, I had a dream of having a podcast and I could not sit there and talk to myself. So I tried. So I finally was like, Rachel, do you want to do a podcast together? And this is the way that I can get content out easily, because if I sit down and try to just do it myself, unless I'm directly responding to a problem, which is why I also do a lot of YouTube tutorials or look what I figured out how to do kind of thing, that is the best content that comes through me. I also have a client. She is a projector. So projectors kind of have very low energy. She used to be a teacher. She's such a great educator. So what she does is a giant in-depth blog post every month. And then we have a system where the team takes that down and breaks it into like other little posts. She was my first content waterfall client, and that really works for her. And I've never met a reflector because they're really rare, but they're pretty slow. They're going to need a spacious system for producing their content.
Yeah. I mean, it's just all so fascinating to me. So I think, the goal isn't to find, the excuse of not to create. The goal is to find how you can exist, what format where the creation either feels way more natural and intuitive versus having somebody coming in and trying to rip all of these ideas out of you. That's not the goal. We want that impactful, intentional, effortless flow.
Yeah. And so the system, not to brag on ourselves, but the system that we have created for this, it can work for all energy types, right? Which is our anchor system, right? We create this podcast. I thrive in conversation. And then this conversation, this transcript becomes my newsletter, my threads, my clips, all of these things. I've got all of these things that are happening behind the scenes that break it down now. We've got Content Sprout that I've been testing that takes this and breaks it down into 30 different pieces. And that works for my energy because I'm not having to, one, get bogged down and having to recreate a bunch of little projects, because that's kind of a manifesting generator thing too. I like to do it and then move on to the next thing. So we can record this podcast and our lovely VA takes it and breaks it down into everything else. For Rachel, this fits because it's 1 hour of her time. It captures all that, she needs to do. If we work ahead enough to, if we do need to cancel and not record today, that happens.
Yeah.
But it kind of just works for us. And like I said, I have the projector client who this system really originated from, and it works for her as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the key is finding whatever that anchor is for you. Like Jess said, this is hers. For me, it's not necessarily my main piece of content. My main piece of content is still, shows up whenever it wants to show up kind of thing. But it really is just finding what allows you to build that depth with this. And I don't want it to sound like this, but the minimal effort that you can do.
Yeah. I mean, because I think a lot of people think you have to show up on YouTube. And I keep talking about these on Instagram every day to be able to get clients. But I keep talking about these YouTube videos that I probably recorded last April. I guarantee you I recorded them last April. If you go look at the published date, there are 4 where I was really fiery and really on, and they are still working. And I still pull from them. So if I need post or if I need fill my newsletter up, it's really good content that I can create and it still shows up, gets clients, does everything beautifully. So yeah.
So let's get into the framework, the 3 things that need to happen in order for this intuitive kind of waterfall to take place. First is that anchor, find the format that most vibes with where you're at energetically, how you can do things. There are so many tools out there that if you can just ramble into a voice note, we'll make that into copy. If you can, the whole blog, that can turn into all of the different things. So do what allows you to kind of exist in alignment with your steadiness, whatever allows you to feel flowy, and start there, because you have to identify your anchor. And I would even say maybe step 0 is go do an annual plan so that you have a little bit more awareness as you get into this kind of steady kind of content system designed for you. That's key, because if you don't know where you're going or you don't know why you're doing anything, you really should not be starting this yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you have, and it's like, what if I have one offer? That's fine. I think 4 to 8 pieces of good anchor content is enough just to sustain you for a while, just making sure that you're hitting on those different stages of awareness, and you can kind of cycle through them or make it seasonal or that kind of thing. You don't have to be so creative and start from scratch every time. You just kind of have to share like you. The people that are showing up consistently, getting clients, all of that, they're not working harder from you. They either have a giant team behind them or they have a system that supports their energetic capacity that is realistic with everything else that they have going on. And then they've designed that to fit around their life. So we just want to close it up here and let you know that we do have a free resource for you that kind of walks you through our view of this content ecosystem that we talk about. So it kind of walks you through what it is, why it works, how to create it. And then it also will put you on a wait list for when Content Sprout comes out, which will take any piece of anchor content and break it down into a bunch of different pieces. Coming soon within the next 2 weeks. So if you're interested, get on the list. And until next week,
We're rooting for you.